Welcome to the Kingdom Educators Podcast, where we empower Christian teachers to grab a hold of heaven's hope-filled perspective so you can activate transformational impact in your classroom and community. I'm your host, Jessica Glover, and I warmly welcome you to wake up to your strategic placement as a kingdom educator, anointed by the Creator and equipped by all of heaven to release the radical goodness of God that will transform lives and reshape education. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kingdom Educators Podcast. This is Jessica Glover, and today I have a special guest with me from Beacon of Light. This is Amber Auger from California. Welcome, Amber.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, I'm excited to bring Amber to the show today because she carries something really near and dear, probably to most of our hearts. And that is that she creates, or she's a part of a curriculum company called Beacon of Light, where they're getting out the true facts when it comes to sex and the way, like the full picture of how God sees sex, but it's from all of the facts, the true facts. So they're not just getting one slanted view. And she's going to go more into that. But this is a really fun connection because, like, we've had many people from Christian educators sharing testimony of how God is using them and directing them as being teachers on mission in our public schools. Amber is also connected to Christian educators, and I actually found her name on a request from David Schmus, the director, asking if I would help review some Beacon of Light curriculum. And I said yes, because I was so curious in their story. And I love how God is just drawing different ones of us in the curriculum space and the teaching world to follow his heart and do the things that are bold, to step out. Like Amber and I were just talking, like there's a lot of adversity when we step out and do something new. And the enemy's like, wait, they're waking up to who they are. And I just want you to remember that, kingdom educator, that sometimes when we recognize who we are, we're a force to be reckoned with. And we're messing with, I'm just going to say it, the gates of hell, because this is a place where we wake up to being watchmen on the wall. And in this case, we're watching out on our kids' lives, on their futures, and helping to give them the tools they need to be successful and live the full lives that Jesus paid for. Whether they come to know him or not, though our heart is that they would hear the gospel and receive salvation and walk in the fullness, they get the option to hear truth about their decisions sexually and identity and all those pieces we know that are connected. So Amber, without further ado, I would love to have you just share the heart behind Beacon's curriculum and the facts you guys are sharing, a little bit into that, and like what brought you. I just gave you a whole bag of things to talk about.
Yeah.
But Amber loves this, so you'll be awesome.
I'm excited. Beacon of Light started in 1998. I love the story. The founder, Fran Tracy, she worked at a crisis pregnancy center. And she really just felt like it was a little bit too late when the teens are pregnant. Then they just have their three choices. And so she wanted to get into prevention work. So she put herself back in school and got a psychology degree and put together a 1 day, so 1 period, school period slide talk. Went out to one high school and said, hey, can I do this in your health class in 1998? And they said, sure. And within, I think about 2 years, she was in over 22 different schools, 4 different school districts. No one even knew she existed. She just did it part-time and just was giving a 1 day talk on sex is a big deal with facts. No Christianese, no proselytizing, just her story and facts. I was able to join. I have a story of my own. Maybe it'll unfold within here. And with my story, as I became an adult, I really wanted to give teens, my local teens, I born and raised here in Orange County, California. And I wanted to share with high schoolers that it can happen. You can get pregnant and really just give a reality check. And I found her and I loved that it was just facts in the public school, because facts help, I believe, when you present all of the facts and allow the kids to come to their own conclusion that sex is a big deal. It's going to last with them a lot longer than just talking at them and sharing my opinion. So I found the beauty in that, and it was changing people's lives, and we were excited. So that's kind of how I got started in doing that. I don't even know the year, maybe 2016, 17. Okay. 18, maybe. I should probably know that.
Okay, so something you told me too last time we met, and I thought this was really pivotal to share, is that when kids hear the facts, they get all excited because they feel like they've only been
Mm.
told part. Will you share that?
Yeah. I want to preface with if I didn't believe this generation, I have two kids that are in this generation. And when I say this generation, I say in junior high and high school right now.
Yeah.
I believe in this generation. I believe they have been put through the ringer with COVID. I believe that they are special. And I get to see that when I was going in the classrooms prior to COVID. I saw that when I spoke facts, literally you could hear a pin drop in the room and
Mm,
they were drinking it up. It's funny you said this earlier prior to the podcast. They drank it up like a fire hose.
yeah.
And I really thought long and hard about what was so different because I feel like people our age or older are like, no one really wants to listen to that story. Everyone thinks sex is no big deal. I don't know what you think you're accomplishing in the classroom, but
Hmm.
I would invite my supporters that paid my salary to come and listen. And they were amazed every time because they would drink it up.
Wow.
And I really think it's because it's so countercultural that this generation really has all the information we all know, all the information at their fingertips. They can look up anything at any time. And when you hear something that is so countercultural yet rings true,
Hmm.
they lean in, they listen, they want it, they want to absorb it. It rings true in their core. And the kids would either come up to me after and say, I'm so grateful. My parents have told me, or my mom has told me, or my dad has told me not to have sex, but now I know why. And
Yeah.
I had kids coming up saying, I'm actually having
So
sex.
good.
How do I stop? How do I prevent? Because we don't have STDs yet. We don't have pregnancy yet, but I don't want to make those choices.
Hmm.
I wasn't even thinking about those choices, which is part of my story. So it really, when you present truth at its core through facts, the kids drink it up. And I know that teachers out there listening, they know that too. So it's
Yeah.
really encouraging and empowering to think about it.
Oh, that's so good. It kind of makes me think of like when kids can kind of suss out whether you're a genuine person or not.
Oh,
It's like the same with
yes.
the info, like the curriculum that you're bringing out. They're like, oh, this is like more than what I've heard. And this is like the full picture.
They can. If you go in there and you do not know what you're doing, they are going to tear you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
That's
I
funny.
want to hear more about your passion to see young people informed. Like you have a backstory too, Amber, and I want you to feel free to intersperse this in here. But what is like the big impact that you saw in Beacon of Light where you're like, I have to be a part of this? And how does that
Mm,
kind of intertwine with your own story as a
yeah.
teen?
Yeah. It probably started more with my story. I was pregnant at 15, just really truly didn't think it would happen to me. Cheerleader, dating a football player, just really, really didn't think about it and had to make a decision. I did choose abortion, spiraled my whole life into
Mm,
years and years of lots of different things it touches on. My story touches on alcoholism, drug use, attempted suicide, miscarriage, not bonding to my children,
yeah.
all of those things. I guess if I had to snapshot it, believing the lie at 15 that I could cover up what I was doing and no
Mhm,
one would ever have to know if
mhm.
I just had an abortion. It would be the quickest fix and no one would ever have to know.
So
Hmm.
I just want our listeners, because like my heart's really touched by this. I think
Hmm.
sometimes we need to slow down and remember what our kids are going through at school. Like that this isn't just about, okay, a life is being killed. This is like Amber's life is being broken. And
Mm,
as I'm just thinking about people, Amber, who are supporters of educators on mission in schools, the power of your prayers to pray for these kids for protection over their eyes, over their hearts, over their ears, over everything about what they're experiencing in this time of life is so pivotal because this is what I mean by lives can be saved. Like there's so many pieces to this, what Amber's been through. And so, yeah, I just want to point that out because I think it's so powerful.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I got kicked out of school. I got tormented
And you got
and
bullied too, didn't you? Yeah.
bullied the old school way. I mean, old school way, like people following me and
Mm,
throwing things at me. It was crazy. And I got asked to leave because in, 1998, that's what, I was the problem. And
mhm.
so I got asked to leave and transferred and really just broken, 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 all from believing the lie that no one would have to know. Yet everyone found out because I had one friend with me who told one friend who told one friend.
Oh my gosh.
And when I get to tell this part of the story in the classroom or when I used to be able to tell it, I would ask the students, okay, I I had the abortion. I didn't want anyone to know. I wasn't telling anyone I was having sex. So how could I go to anyone and this really leads into a good point, but how could I then go to anyone and say, I'm actually pregnant? Right? Because I didn't do the first step. I didn't have any trusted adults, is what we use a lot in our curriculum.
Yeah.
I didn't have any trusted adults that I was confiding in. So I couldn't confide anything else. So I had to confide in the pregnancy clinic. And they said no one would ever have to know. Of course, my one friend told one friend, everyone found out, got tormented, got asked to leave right around Easter, 9 weeks left of my sophomore year.
Hmm.
And so I stopped my story and would ask the kids. Now I started my new high school, broken, no boyfriend, no baby. Everyone has found out. What type of group do I find myself in? And all of
Mm,
them answer the ones that do drugs and drink alcohol, yeah, and smoke
mm,
cigarettes. Like that is what I did. And I didn't know if I was numbing it or if I was trying to feel something.
mhm,
But then all of that continued until I tried to commit suicide at 17. And then I kind of got my life back together by being a worldly get back together, right? Like just be good, stop sleeping around. I mean, start dating people who didn't abuse you physically and
mhm,
emotionally and just get your life back together. Stop drinking, stop doing drugs, right? I don't know if I stopped doing that at that point, but it wasn't until a much more brokenness with my miscarriage of twins. And I remember sitting down, drinking a bottle of vodka with a miscarried baby inside of me, no heartbeat. And I remember crying out to God and saying, I get it. I killed yours. You killed mine. Are we
mm,
even? And I didn't know God. I knew God of the Bible. I didn't have a relationship with Jesus by any means. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, who is now in college. But when I gave birth to her, I couldn't bond to her. I didn't know what that meant. My second daughter couldn't bond to her. And then she got sick. And so within that journey of being unbonded to my children, my daughter being
mhm.
sick, the doctor looked at me and said, I'll pray she doesn't die. I did fall on my knees and just say, God, if you're real, I need you.
Was that just because they was concerned about her being like taken care of, like nurtured because you were having a hard time bonding?
No, she was physically sick. Like
Physically sick. Okay.
yeah, she went limp in my hands at 10 days old.
Oh,
Yeah, and she was in the hospital for that. And then because of that, she had a lot of upper GI issues.
oh my
She stopped
gosh.
breathing in the middle of the night. We had her in the middle of the day. We had to revive her.
Ooh.
She just was in and out and then had RSV. She was just sick. It was
Mm,
just, and so they didn't really know what was going on with her. So they were saying, we'll pray she doesn't die because they didn't know what was going on.
yeah.
But with that, I went to an Easter. My friend invited me to, I didn't know God was answering because I just did that prayer and I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest.
Hmm.
I got invited to an Easter service. I thought it was just, okay, whatever. And my best friend had said, hey, there's this Alpha course. Alpha is like Christianity 101, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah. Hmm.
And she said, there's an Alpha course. I want to learn more about Jesus. Looking back, she was a full believer her whole life. So good on her. And I want to learn more about Jesus. Will you come with me? And there's free daycare. And I said, sure. And I ended up giving my life to the Lord there. Amazing, transformational. And shortly after, I found a post abortion recovery group. And I went through that intense
Mm,
post abortion recovery Bible study. And that is where Jesus really became real to me and healed. And I understood what the cross meant and I understood that I was healed.
yeah.
And there was a moment where he told me he was going to make beauty from my ashes. And I didn't know what that meant, but it was such a defining moment. I forget often of from 15 to, I don't know, I was 23 maybe. There wasn't a day, I don't even think an hour that I didn't think of my abortion or didn't think of my daughter. I always knew it was a daughter that I wasn't consumed with it. It was so
Mhm.
heavy. And
Wow.
I was able to really give that to Jesus and be light and free from it. I often forget this far down from that
Hmm.
moment, how heavy and dark it is, but it's a real dark place that I was at. I knew other women had felt this, and I started working with the post abortion recovery and leading that. I also started working with teen moms. This is a fun part of the story I probably didn't share with you, but I worked with this wonderful organization, Fristers,
Uh-huh.
in Orange County, and they work with teen moms. And I was like a table leader, and I always got more out of it than they did. I promise that. But after this semester, it's where teen moms come for free and they get a free meal and they get educated and just to be the best moms that they can be, but for the best selves
Wow.
and the best moms that they can be.
Mhm.
And it was life changing because I feel like they were stronger than I was. They chose
Mm.
life. And here they are on the other side, struggling, being a single mom, most of them, and, coming
Yeah.
from places, but they're attending every week to better themselves. And I just wanted to come alongside people who were stronger than I was.
So
And
powerful.
yeah, and that was like my favorite stuff. But all within that mix, I was doing my own medical sales business and living the dream kind of. And I really felt the want to share with teens, hey, really, sex is a big deal and it can happen. Because I remember thinking when I was 15, I know now my frontal cortex wasn't fully developed, but I know, now I know this, but I just remember having sex and thinking, oh, that's not going to happen to me.
The
Do you know? Like,
pregnancy. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. How
like
could
that's
that?
not going to happen. STDs,
I'm
that's not going to
invincible.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that. And so I wanted to be a local girl, still local. Hey,
Hmm.
this happened to me. And I'm on the other side and I just want to share. So that's when I got hooked up with Beacon of Light and started just going in and getting trained by Fran
Hmm.
and just started talking to classrooms. And that's where I really, like I said earlier, fell in love with how life changing this 1 hour can be for these kids. And they would write us letters. I mean, I have some in my drawer here.
Oh, so cool.
I mean, literally, I don't even know. I have like hundreds of them, but
Wow.
they would just say, I mean, let's see. Pornography is my favorite subject to uncover, and that we can talk. We'd have a whole nother podcast about that. But we'd ask them to write after 1 hour, what do you
Uh,
think about teens and sex? And they would write things, and this one is just silly. Viruses are bad and common, and just wait. Protection is good, and porn is bad. I mean,
that's
that's
good.
like
They got all your
porn.
main nuggets.
Yeah. I mean, but we had thousands of these and we'd speak to
Wow.
10,000 kids a year. And
Uh-huh.
it was just, this presentation was straightforward, understandable, and healthy for everyone.
Oh,
It
that's so
just,
good.
oh yeah, just life changing. How do you not want to be a part of something that's life changing?
Yeah.
And so fast forward, we're doing that again, living the dream, feeling like I'm coasting. And this law came into California and I realized I started sharing the stage with Planned Parenthood,
Okay.
coming into schools for 10 days. Here I
Mhm.
was, we were undercover kind of doing one
Day a year, right?
day a semester, once in high school, once in junior
Hmm.
high. Kind of no big deal, just not, it was a big deal. It was life changing. But here, Planned Parenthood was getting now, because of this new law, the California Healthy Youth Act, AB 329, they're getting 10 days. And some of my schools were like, I can't afford to have 11 days of not teaching because health is only a semester, right?
Hmm.
And so we'll get you next time. But then after they would have them in, they were like, no, we need you to come in before or after. So some teachers would pick me before or in some after, and they'd always would say they learn more from your one day than they did the all other 10 days. And I need
Wow.
them to hear a different perspective. Even though we still were complying with the law, we weren't fulfilling the law. Because again, we don't preach the gospel. It was never, not since 1988, never abstinence only, always about protection, always wanting to reduce the risk and
Hmm.
sharing what that looks like, but treating it as if you're not going to do it, that's okay. You're in the majority, actually.
Hmm.
And if you are, there are ways to reduce your risk as you get information to help you on your path.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was sick and tired of sharing the stage. I don't want them to have 10 days and me to only get one day. And so, enter, dun dun dun, check the facts. I found a girl up north. She was doing the same thing we were kind of doing down here, and the ACLU came after her. And she wrote for the law, and she has a full 10-day compliant with the law.
Hmm.
And so we were working on piloting it, biggest school district, and we raised $100,000 and all these community people. And literally, I wish I remember the date, but our launch date was like March 18th of 2020
Yeah.
and the world shut down, I think March what?
Somewhere
Literally,
halfway through the month.
we were going into schools the next Tuesday.
So crazy.
And we had
Wow.
done the parent meeting, we had done everything, raised all this money, and our whole thing just shifted.
And lawyers had even checked it out and everything. Like
Yep,
it was totally legally written.
legally reviewed, ready to go, full 2-year pilot, canceled. But that's okay. It pivoted our way of it was a very expensive model. $100,000 for a semester is a lot
Ooh.
of money. Yeah, a lot of
Hmm.
money. So we have spent the last 4 years digging in and trying to make it as replicatable and inexpensive as possible because our heart is that every kid hears the truth, right?
Hmm.
Our
Hmm.
heart is that we all know that having sex at a young age creates emotional, physical, and relational issues. And so we now are working with training health teachers to teach the curriculum. So somehow I'm a curriculum developer, and here we are
Which
today.
is so exciting.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sure this is grabbing your heart if you're like me at all.
Okay.
Amber's like, she's got this curriculum and it's called Check the Facts, but it's by Beacon of Light. I'm saying it right. But it is hopeful because it's giving all the
Oh, I
facts.
love
So
that. It
that's
does.
really good. Something that we talked about, Amber, was hey, I'm not in California, but how would I get that in my state? And what does that look like if you know that your state, for example, we talked about Washington State a little bit, and when your state adopts the AB 329, is that the same name for every state when
So
they,
it's the Healthy Youth Act. So
okay.
California was the first of the United States leading the way in
Mm.
the Healthy Youth Act. And Washington State has followed, a few other states have followed, and they've tweaked it a little bit. So
Okay.
Washington State is a little bit different than our state. We were asked to write for them, and we did on a budget in the middle of COVID, wrote for them. We were not complete. It was like 90% complete. And the only reason they didn't choose us was because they wanted it to be complete by the time they had to implement.
Okay.
And so we
Which
said
was
we would,
unforeseen with COVID, right?
yep,
Okay.
yep. So we would,
Okay.
our goal is to have it completed by the time they come around for their rounds, I believe next year or the next year.
Okay.
But Jeanette wrote it, and Jeanette and I both believe that we would put our kids through this class, even if we weren't in California,
Hmm.
because of the internet, because of our phones, and because of exposure. I mean, literally Netflix or TVs or movies. I mean, there is porn happening if you're not even watching porn, but the average
Yeah.
age for viewing porn is actually 9, usually by accident. But if we're seeing that already, or our kids have seen that, we want to give all the facts on the other end. And
Yeah.
so we would put our kids through this even if we weren't in California.
Yeah.
So, how would you get our things? We are putting together, we have a version 1.0, but we're making a version 2.0 videos. The other ones are homemade, very homemade. So, we're raising money right now. We're in
Hmm.
October. We're currently raising an extra 100,000. We've raised 120,000 so far.
Can we put
Um,
that link in the show notes if people have a heart to
yes,
give? Okay, perfect. You
yes,
send that to me.
yes.
I'll put it in there.
I will, the donate link.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is so important that we have our video production team. We have everything ready. We want to make the short videos. They're about 25 to 30-minute videos. We have
Okay.
10 lessons,
Hmm.
and we would love every home to have this. We would love
Yeah.
every parent to even watch it prior. We would love
Hmm.
for parents to watch it with their kids at home. We would love homeschoolers to do it. I put my kids through the homemade ones all the time. I do because over and over. And I will say it sounds like it's a one touch and be done with it, but
Hmm.
each time I share it, even with my own kids, they get something different out of it. I won't go too much into detail, but there was one subject I made my daughter come listen to again. And she was like, What? And I was like, We've talked about it 7 times. She's like, I know, but I never listened because it wasn't important. Do you know? Like it wasn't on
Hmm.
my radar
Yeah.
about sexting, but she wasn't sexting, but she just, like she
Yeah.
didn't even hear that part because it wasn't pertinent until she had a boyfriend. And then he's
Yeah.
asking for it. So then she's like, Whoa, I never even heard this part. I'm like, Yes, you have 5 times. So,
Hmm.
and another story, and I know you guys know this with your kids that come back and they're your student aides.
Yes.
They heard my one day talk. They were like, We heard it as a freshman, but we're so grateful we heard it again as a junior or a senior because it's so much more valuable and we got more out of it. So
Because it applies more probably by
I
that point, I would think.
I'm saying if not once a year, putting your kids through it. And
Hmm.
then even as they start having kids, right? Like I
Yeah.
do this for teen moms all the time. And my approach to teen moms is you need to know this for your kids growing up. But then they always end up going, Wait, I didn't know that. Wait, I didn't know that. Wait, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it's really cool. So
Yeah.
I would suggest the videos. And so the videos are not going to, yeah, there's donate button, but I'm going to put on my website if you are interested in getting notified when they drop to put your email in.
And we'll include that in the
If
show notes too.
if you're in California as a teacher, you can email us from our website or email me And it's Amber at beaconof-light.org. You can email me and we can talk about getting you in training because I know the way of helping your district adopt it and all of that good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited about the opportunity for this being accessible to even, I know you've said there are homeschool groups that have adopted it or private schools, the Christian schools that are grabbing a hold of it.
that's my favorite thing is that at Beacon of Light through Check the Facts, again, we do not preach the gospel. It is literally just the facts from the CDC that prove that sex is a big deal. And it's not abstinence based, it's just beautiful facts. And it was created for public schools. And I have this Christian schools that are adopting them and they are adding their own biblical studies to the side of it.
That's
So they're
awesome.
showing that, look, this is what God says in the Bible. Look, this is science
Yeah.
backing it. And so, how beautiful to have, I think it's just a giggle
Mhm.
that literally a giggle that God is like putting it in Christian schools because I think for a long time, us as Christians have done a bad job of, I don't want to have an opinion. It's too much to have that a talk. We're
Mhm.
not going to have that talk. But unfortunately, if we're not having the talk
Yeah.
and we're not those trusted adults for our kids,
Mhm.
Google is now the trusted adult. Your friend who went through the other class is your trusted adult. We have to change the narrative, be a part of the narrative,
Amen.
because
Yeah.
the world is way too happy to fill in the gap that
Yeah.
sex is literally the theme of what they hear all the time is everyone is having sex, which is a
Mhm.
lie.
Mhm.
Sex is no big deal, which is a lie. And that everyone's going to get an STD and we just need to normalize it and be okay with it.
Yeah.
It makes me really sad.
Yeah. I know that when I was teaching fifth grade, we had to go through the growing up talk and they
Yes.
had a curriculum come in. And I remember really liking it. One thing that the director said that got my attention big time is right before I became an instant mom of six kids, too. It was like the year right before I got married. And so I'm paying a super close attention because our oldest is going to be 13, like in a couple of months. But the one thing she said was, you either have the talk or your kids are going to get the McDonald's version. So which one do you want? And I was like, oh, not McDonald's.
I'm
I don't want the
same.
fast food, like partial truth or little bits of smatterings and trying to put them together. Cause in our heads, we come up with all these imaginary things and then we're trying to put stuff together. And this happens whether we're believers or not. I mean,
Yep.
it's like a kid just trying to figure things out. And so taking the power into our own hands to, like you said, Amber, getting a hold of the information for ourselves to share with our kids
Yes.
creates that trusted adult relationship. And then they know they can come ask questions. Even if you're like I was with my mom, I don't want to talk about this. It still like gets the foot in the door of I care about you. Here's the information. And we'll move forward from there. And like you said, as they get older, sometimes it applies even more, or they have ears to hear it a little better, and then it will stick. And that's just a really good deal.
With the videos, my intention would be that I do the heavy lifting. The Check the Facts program does the heavy lifting for you
Yeah.
because we don't all need to be experts in teens and sex. I am not,
Mhm.
that's what I'm an expert in. Unfortunately, that's the path I'm in, and I am an expert.
It's
But
good.
you shouldn't be an expert in that, right? You shouldn't have to be digging in the CDC for stats every year and knowing everything that's changing. But let us do that. And if you watch those videos, it'd be the same as if you had me in your home talking, which really, those are my favorite talks to do is where the kids are in the front, the parents are in the back, and they let me do all the heavy lifting. I would give the common knowledge. I would give the platform for you to be like, oh, do you remember when you learned this? And then you could have that conversation to build. Because I think as parents, this even happens with all of my friends. I'm going to give a real quick scenario. Your kid comes into the car and they're like, "Oh, hey, so and so told me that they're going to use some language that we've never heard, right? That
Mhm.
there's something sexual going on and they're going to use some language we've never heard of." And we don't know what it is as a parent. So automatically, we just go, "I don't know what that is. We'll talk about it later." Right? And then our days go about we
And
never
then we
bring it back
don't.
up. Right. Never.
uh,
And it's sometimes embarrassing for us because we have to work through our stuff. That is something, side note,
yeah.
preview, something so heavy on Jeanette and I's heart. We really want to get this curriculum done, these videos done, and then move forward with this next thing is equipping parents
Mm,
with tools to dig into their own stuff
mhm.
to where they would then feel comfortable having these talks with their kids. Because what we find is parents don't want to have this talk because they don't know what door to open, what door to say, how to say it. And we're sometimes ashamed of our own stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want to overshare. We want better for our kids. All of us
Yeah.
want better for our kids. We don't know if it's helpful or hurtful if we share it. And so, if we could help parents dig through that, we could help parents become the real trusted adults in this arena and
Mhm.
start sharing in a healthy way what our values are and what our goals are. And I do want to break the stigma. The CDC even says this, by the way, the Center for Disease Control, that we think that the more we talk about sex, the more our kids will do it. But it actually shows the more that parents are open and have conversations with their kids, the
Mhm.
more they actually are the trusted adult, and the kids that have more conversations share their parents' values on sex and on other risky behaviors. They share their values and they
Mhm.
will continue doing them. So the more we talk about it openly, I think the better our kids will be.
And that makes
Yeah.
sense. They feel safe and then they feel supported. It's really, really good.
I mean, you should hear the questions my kids ask at the dinner table. My husband is like, "What is happening?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to answer. Like, I'm going to say what it is." And they're like, "Okay." But how great that they get to ask me these really hard questions.
Yeah.
And I always say, if I don't know, let's look at it together, right? Because I let my kids go through the other curriculums that were in our school. I let them go through both ours and theirs.
Mhm.
And my response to my oldest was, I want you to listen. I want you to be respectful. But if there's anything that's counter than what I said, if it's different, if it sounds different, it doesn't sound like exactly what our curriculum shows, write down the question. Let's look at it together. Because I
Mhm.
don't want to be teaching anything that's wrong either.
Yeah.
And she ended up just circling all the facts that weren't true and and turning it into her teacher. And it was really kind of a beautiful thing. Her kind of
Wow.
just recognizing what was true and what wasn't.
Wow. That's really a good visual and a reminder. Like, yeah, letting the teacher in the district know, like, hello,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is not good. Well,
Yeah.
Amber, I'm so excited about, yeah, what you guys are working on right now. I know that you've got curriculum reviewers that are finishing up in the next week,
Yes, yes, yes. We have
including me. And
45 community reviewers looking at all different aspects of medical accessibility, feasibility through the HECAT, making sure that we're good to go. We
yes.
have another lawyer stamping us again.
Hmm.
We're just going through all the steps to really be able to let this flood across California and beyond
Yes.
and get into as many teachers that want to use it as possible.
So please check out the show notes. If you have this is on your heart that you're like, oh, I want to support this, it's like truth going out into the schools, please hit the donate button. Amber's also got her contact information if you want to reach out to her directly. And then there's going to be that link to get a hold of their email list to let you know when those videos drop in the springtime. So remember, homeschool, private, public school, you can check out those videos and get a hold of her if you're interested in getting curriculum too, if you've got questions or anything.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Yeah.
Amber, so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. This is truly a God story. He makes beauty for ashes, and he took something that was such a pain and hurt in your own life. And you are just choosing to propel with your yes to him and helping other kids hopefully miss those same mistakes because they're informed and they feel loved and they're a part of a hopefully community of trusted adults that can speak into their lives. So teachers, thank you again for joining us today. I just appreciate the work that you're doing, investing in our kids, whether it's public, private, or homeschool scenarios. You are a hero and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for tuning into this podcast. Please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends in education so they too can be strengthened and encouraged in living their kingdom identity out loud in this pivotal hour. And please visit kingdomeducators.com to receive your Kingdom Educator Daily Truth Declarations, my encouraging newsletter, and be the first to know about my newest resources online and in-person events. And be sure to find me on the socials at kingdom.educators. Until next time, don't forget you are a history maker, and what you do every day is transforming lives.